Well, I've got to say, I have checked a huge box today. I am in the Goodyear Blimp. Right now, we are about 500 feet over the Pacific Ocean, and I'm telling you, this is the first time I've ever done it, but I think I want to do it again and again and again. Now, I'm with one of the Blimp pilots, Bill, and Bill, thank you again. I'm like a NASCAR fan at a racetrack right now. This is so cool, but you know, we've got our next gen car that we're coming out this year with the NASCAR Cup Series, and one thing I've heard the drivers say a lot about it, it's hard to drive. It's a little bit of a handful. How hard is it to pilot the Goodyear Blimp?
You know, we've transitioned to this new model that you're on board right now, the Goodyear NT. NT stands for New Technology. So with that comes more maneuverability. It's bigger, it's faster. So we're able to hover on the edge of that racetrack and see the cars go round and round. But as far as technology goes and the training for the pilots, it takes us about a year to learn how to fly one of these.
Wow. Now I noticed you guys were in radio communication. You know, I was a crew chief for roughly 18 years, and I was always in communication with my driver, the spotter. Everybody on the team had a radio. Who are you actually in communication with? Do you have like your own crew chief you're talking to?
Absolutely. So we're in constant communication with the crew chief to kind of organize the logistics of how we land and take off the blimp and where our crew is at any given moment. We're also listening to the network director, so they're calling the shots that they'd like us to get, and you know, get the nice sun angles, all that. And of course, we're also doing the pilot stuff, talking air traffic control and making sure we're in the right position at the right time.
So we're out here in the Los Angeles area for the Busch Light Clash at the LA Coliseum. It's the very first for NASCAR. Majority of the teams are located all the way on the East Coast in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you flew the Goodyear Blimp from Los Angeles to Charlotte, A, how long would it take, and B, how many fuel stops?
I'd probably say about 8, 9 fuel stops, and we could do it in about 12 days.
Wow, wow.
If we had more crews, we could probably do it maybe 6 or so.
Total horsepower, if you think about our engines, depending on what track, like we go to the Daytona 500, we'll have 510 horsepower. LA Coliseum, a little smaller track, 670 horsepower. Total, the 3 engines, how much horsepower?
All 3 engines, 600 horsepower.
600, so you're right in between our 510 and our 670. You know, as a crew chief, I was always looking at weather because it affected our race cars. The higher speed tracks like Daytona, we were always looking at wind speed, wind direction. No matter what track, we were looking at air temperature. That affect the handling and the grip of the race car. I would assume flying this big blimp around, weather's a big deal.
Indeed it is. Wind, temperature, and even rain, you know. It's the same as what the drivers are taking into account in the different teams. You got a wet track, you're gonna handle that differently. With a lot of rain, that's gonna add a lot of water weight to this blimp. This thing's 250 foot long. So water weight, the temperature as that changes, so day to night, that changes the temperature. The helium cools off, we lose lift or gain lift depending. So all those factors, of course with wind as well, with what angle we're flying the blimp and hovering for the best angle. So all of those factors, 100%.
So you mentioned weight. Our race cars, full of fuel, ready to race, ready to hit the racetrack, they weigh about 3,500 pounds. How much does this Goodyear Blimp weigh?
We usually go 2 ways. So with the helium, we weigh nothing right now. Without the helium, it's about 20,000 pounds. So what that difference is about 1.5, 2 million birthday balloons worth of helium above us.
Now this week at the LA Coliseum, when we run the Busch Light Clash on Sunday afternoon, 23 drivers will take the green flag. But pretty much every week in a cup race, there's 40 drivers. Did a little research. I hear that there are less Goodyear Blimp pilots than we have astronauts. You talked about a year's training, but how do you get to that point where you can work to become a blimp pilot?
So first, you'll have a commercial license in airplanes or helicopters. No one typically goes straight into blimps, but you build a couple thousand hours in airplanes or helicopters, and then you'll hire on. The tough part is it's not just flying with Goodyear. You know, first and foremost, we're an ambassador for the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, so we're helping all aspects with, you know, giving rides to whether it's tire dealers, customers, charity rides. One of my favorite things to do is we get to go to the Goodyear plants across the country. So it's kind of cool. We get to give the workers at the plants, people that build those tires, rides in their iconic blimp.
That is awesome. Well, as I said, this is my first trip in the Goodyear Blimp. I hope it's not my last. I'm like, again, a NASCAR fan maybe going to their first race. I'm like in awe, and I want to thank you for taking me for a ride today all over Los Angeles, but I guess we better get back because I think it's Alex's turn to get on the Goodyear Blimp and take her maiden voyage. But I want you to tune in tomorrow because what Alex is going to do, she's going to compare the specs of the next-gen car to the Goodyear Blimp.